It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Zimbabwe. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Zimbabwe's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We are publishing previews of the groups and teams for the 2025 African Cup. I'm doing those with Connor. So that's coming out at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. And we also did a media cast introducing ourselves. After this African Cup, we're going to tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So keep an eye out. We'll start publishing episodes for that in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast on the players in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. We're going to introduce you in more detail on the players we think likely to reach the final squad or be starters, and less detail, perhaps even just the names of the players unlikely to get there or to start. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in early December, early to mid-December, I would say. At that time, we will go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. Section 1, where we look at some general information on the team. Section 2, where we cover the main candidates in each position and predict their likelihood. And Section 3, where we summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. Let's begin then. Section 1, some general information on the team. We have been talking about big names off the squad in this section, but we're going to change it up a bit. We're going to cover them in sections 2 and section 3. So we'll give the details in section 2 and then summarize in section 3. Let's talk about club affiliations. Zimbabwean players tend to move out of country to further their careers, but we do have around 50% or so playing for, or in the case of some veterans, returning to play for clubs in Zimbabwe. So the bigger clubs represented here are Dynamos FC and Scotland FC. That's actually a new club, a fairly new club in Zimbabwe. But surprisingly, FC Platinum is not represented on the national team here. The next logical step is the bigger leagues of South Africa and similar leagues. So some of the bigger clubs in South Africa they play for are Mamelodi Sundowns and Amazulu. And we also have a player with Young Africans in Tanzania. That makes up about 10%. The numbers are very rough here, though, rough estimates. Next, in Europe, if they play in Europe, they tend to favor English clubs. So we have several players for English or teams in the English league, Wolverhampton, Brentford, and I had to put in Cardiff because that's where I grew up. It is one of the teams represented. About the same number play for other clubs in Europe. So some of the bigger ones represented here are Udinese in Italy, Copenhagen in Denmark, and Aris Thessalonica in Greece. And then they have a couple of players playing outside of Europe. So one in Libya and one in the USA. So that's an overview of the kind of teams that the Zimbabwe players are with. Let's move on to our look at the recent games. So actually, when we talk about the narratives for each position, we begin with the previous African Cup. Well, they weren't part of the 2023 African Cup, so we had to go back to the 2021 African Cup, which awkwardly took place in January of 2022. So I may call it 2021 or 2022 as we're going here. But that is not part of the participation count for the tournament. It's just kind of the starting point of our narratives. Our actual participation count begins with 2 friendlies in March of 2024. And then in June of 2024, we have World Cup qualifying games for the 2026 World Cup. Zimbabwe has taken part in a couple of local tournaments, the COSAFA Cup and also the African Nations Cup. We are not counting those, even though actually some of their kind of senior team players do play in those tournaments. We don't count it in the participation because some of them don't, so it makes the numbers uneven. But I'll put it up there, but it's not part of the count. That, by the way, 2024 COSAFA Cup in June and July 2024. The next one we count is in the fall of 2024, 6 games in September, October, and November, and those cover all of African Cup qualifying for this tournament. So that's a big chunk of games there. Next, we have in March of 2025, 2 more World Cup qualifiers, and then 2 friendlies in June of 2025, and finally, we have World Cup qualifying, the last games taking place in September and October of 2025. That is 4 games, 4 games there. Okay, a look at their formations. Actually, this is a bit all over the place. They have 5 different formations that they use. We'll just tell you the 2 main ones, though, is a 4-2-3-1. And that is used in 7 out of 18 games, so about 40% there. And then a 4-3-3, also used in 7 out of 18 games. And then for the other 4 games, they use 3 different formations, which we won't get into. But I will kind of summarize. We have over those formations a 2-man central defense in 78% of the games and a 3-man central defense in 22% of the games. Also up top, they have a single forward in 84% of games and then a 2-man forward line in 16% of the games. In a 4-3-3 formation, we consider that to be a single forward, and the outside or flanking forwards we consider to be left and right attacking midfielders. Okay, and then the last order of business here is upcoming games. We're doing this mediacast on November 20th, so they've actually played their November friendlies. But we're not going to look at the lineups for that. We're going to save that for part 2. But let's look and see. Well, we're not interested in the results, to be honest. We're just interested in the lineups because in part 2, they're going to help us predict who the starters are going to be. But just for your information, they played on November 13th in Algeria against Algeria, and they lost that 3-1. But they did better on November 17th in Qatar, where they won an away game 2-1 over Qatar there, both of those friendlies. Okay, so we will come back to those lineups in part 2, but for the time being, we are looking at 18 games over the period to judge player participation. Let's move on to section 2, and our main order of business here is looking at the personnel on the squad. So we begin with the manager. I'm not going to list previous managers here, and you'll find out why soon. But we'll just focus on the current manager, Mario Marinica. Mario Marinica. I'll give a little bit biographical information soon, but first I'm going to tell you the narrative of managers of Zimbabwe over the recent period. So, veteran player Normo Mapes was caretaker manager of Zimbabwe when he led them through the 2021 African Cup. So that's kind of where we're beginning, the last African Cup. That was actually his fifth stint as caretaker manager. So that should indicate to you how quickly the team goes through managers. Following Norma Mapes came a string of 6 managers from 2022 to 2025. The manager before Mario Marinica here was Michael Nice, and he was actually one of the longer serving of that string of managers. He was heading the team from July 2024 to October 2025, and he took them through qualification for this tournament. And as we saw, all of those games were in the fall of 2024. They finished second behind Cameroon there, but ahead of Kenya and Namibia, and qualified for the Cup. That's why we're talking about them here. But the tenure of Michael Nice ended just 9 days after the completion of World Cup qualifying. That was in October of this year, so just a couple of weeks ago. And likely he was dismissed because of their poor result in World Cup qualifying. They finished 6th of 6 in their group, so last place behind Lesotho and Rwanda. So Marinica comes in at the end of October with just a couple of months to prepare for the Cup. And that he is new makes the evidence that we're going to talk about in this mediacast more tenuous, because we're kind of relying on the lineups or the players picked over the last 2 years. But with a new manager coming in, there may be some changes. He may bring in new players or not use players that have been starting. So that makes it a bit more difficult to predict. But anyway, we're not predicting who's starting in this one. We're predicting who's going to make the squad. Even still, new manager makes that tougher. Okay, let's introduce Mario Marinica then. He is a Romanian manager, and he played professionally in Romania until 1993, but did not play for their national team, so no international caps there. Been in charge of Zimbabwe then just since October of 2025. He was manager of Liberia prior to that, and the Malawi national team from 2021 to 2023. So he actually took Malawi through the 2021 African Cup. Prior to that, he's had jobs all over the world, of course, some in Romania, but he's also been an assistant manager in Iraq and in Tanzania, so we won't go into much detail, but ever since 2001, he's been involved in management, beginning with some smaller teams in Romania. Okay, that is Mario Marinica taking them through the Cup. Let's move on to goalkeepers, and we'll begin by just introducing the names that we'll talk about that'll come up in the narrative. So the candidates are 2 definite candidates, Washington Arubi and Martin Mapisa. And then a likely candidate in Elvis Chipazezi. And we have a possible candidate in Marley Tavaziva. And finally, seemingly off the squad, Donovan Bernard. Let's look at the goalkeeping situation over the recent period. The goalkeepers who started in the 2021 African Cup were never called up after the tournament. We're going to see that as a theme, a bit of a purging of players after the 2021 tournament. So we won't even mention those goalkeepers. We'll start with Donovan Bernard, who was the starting keeper going into 2024. He started the March games but lost his position in June of 2024 and was not selected after September of that year. Washington Arubi took over in September and was the starting keeper throughout. However, he was on the bench for 2 games. A friendly in June of 2025, and more significantly, the last game of October 2025. Elvis Chipazazi returned from a 4.5-year absence directly into the role for the first game, and he also started the second time Washington Arubi was out. Again, maybe significant that Washington Arubi was not on the bench for the last, was just on the bench for the last game, but that was under the old manager, so everything may change here. Anyway, these are pretty much the candidates he has to choose from. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some new candidates when we do part 2. But Washington Arubi has been with Zimbabwe since 2005. He's 40 years old and has 42 caps for the national team. He plays for a bit of a smaller team in South Africa there, Marumo Gallants. I think there are 2 players who play for that team. He was not selected even for the preliminary squad for the 2021 African Cup, but over the recent period, Washington Arubi started 12 of their 18 games, and as we saw, on the bench for 2. And he did miss 4 matches, but those were at the beginning of the period. Okay, the other definite candidate is Martin Mapiza, and he's been with Zimbabwe since 2021. He has 5 caps and is 27 years old, and he plays for Dynamos FC in Zimbabwe, but he has played in Europe for some smaller teams in Spain there, and he was on the squad for the 2021 African Cup, but did not see any action, just on the bench there. Even for a B team game, which they used for game 3. Over this period, Mapisa has started none of their 18 games, so you may be wondering why he's a definite candidate, and that's because he's been on the bench for most of the games, 14 of the games, and the more recent games as well. Martin Mapisa then, definite candidate, we think, to be called up to the squad, at least under the old manager's thinking there. Our likely candidate is Elvis Chipazazi. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2019 with 11 caps and is 35 years old. He plays for Mangisi in South Africa, again, a fairly small club there since 2022. He's been there and was part of the 2019 African Cup. He was the 3rd string keeper there, but not selected even for the preliminary squad for the 2021 African Cup. Actually, as we said in the narrative there, he was off the team for 4.5 years, and suddenly in June of 2025 he was brought back in and to start a game, and ultimately started 2 of their remaining 6 games there, and was on the bench for 4 others. So kind of came in from the cold, Elvis Chipazazi. The possible candidate is Marley Tavaziva. He has no caps for the national team. He's only 21 years old, and he was born in England, and he plays for Brentford's youth club in England. He's been with their youth club since 2021. And he got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2024, Marley Tavaziva, and he didn't start any games, but he was on the bench for 11 games, and the other 7 he was not selected for. So he's a possible candidate. And finally, we have Donovan Bernard. He was with Zimbabwe since 2014 with 19 caps. I won't go into detail on him, actually, other than to say He was on the squad for the 2017 African Cup, but not called up for the following two tournaments that they were involved in. Did come back to the team, of course. That's why we're talking about him. But last appeared on the bench in September 2024. So Donovan Bernard out again. New manager might call up players like this. So we're not that confident in our predictions here. Let's move on to defenders, and we begin with central defenders, and let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate, at least based on participation over the period we're looking at, in Gerald Takwara, and another definite candidate in Munashe Garananga. And a third definite candidate in Teenage Hadebi. One likely candidate here, that's Brendan Galloway. He had an injury concern, so we'll tell you about that. And then we have two players at the possible level, Peter Muduwa and Ishianashu Mauchi. So we'll take a look at those six players after we talk about what's happened in the position over the last while. So in the 2021 African Cup, the pairing was Teenage Hadebi and Gerald Takwara, with Peter Muduwa replacing Hadebi in Game 3, that B team game there. And all of those players are still active. In fact, Takwara remains a permanent fixture on the squad since the start of 2024. He has started 16 of their 18 games over the period. Hadebi has started just half of the games, 9 out of 18. Muduwa, on the other hand, just started one game, but that was fairly recent in June of 2025. So Muduwa was not a replacement for Hadebi over this period, the way he was in the Cup. It was actually Munashe Garananga replacing Hadebi, and the Garananga started 12 games. We're going to see that some of these players move around, so they may play as left back or right back from time to time. Otherwise, a couple of players appeared once or twice over the period, including Brendan Galloway, although he struggled with injury throughout most of the period. But he did start the last game alongside Takwara. So we'll talk about his injury when we introduce him. But let's talk about the main candidate here. It's Gerald Takwara. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2015 with 10 caps. No, I must have not updated that. He's got more caps than that. 31 years old, Takwara is, and he's the player who plays in Libya for Al Ittihad. In Libya, he played in Iraq before that and Saudi Arabia. So he's been quite a traveller. He was part of the squad for the 2021 African Cup. As we saw, he was a starter in all three games and starting regularly over the period, as we said, on the bench for one game and not selected for one game. So Gerald Takwara is bolted to the floor of Zimbabwe's defence. The second definite candidate is Munashe Garananga. He's been with Zimbabwe just since 2013, but he has 3 caps and no goals. He's only 21 years old. He plays for Copenhagen in Denmark since 2024, and he's also played in Belgium and interestingly in Moldova and Belarus as well. And over the period started 12 of the 18 games, as we said. He was also on the bench for 2, injured for 2, and just 2 matches he wasn't selected for. So we think he's a definite candidate. The third definite candidate is veteran Teenage Hadebi. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2014 with 49 caps. He also has 4 goals for them and is 30 years old now. He is playing in the USA for FC Cincinnati, and he previously played for Houston Dynamos, but in between and before he's played for clubs in Turkey. He's been part of every recent African Cup. 2017, he was just on the bench there. 2019, he was a starter for all three games. And in 2021, we saw he was replaced in game three, but was a starter there as well. So a lot of tournament experience, but over the period, we saw that he started only half of their games, 9 of 18 games. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 3, and also injured for 2 matches. But just one match that he was not called up for, so or he missed for whatever reason. So he's a definite candidate. Teenage Hadebi. Next, we have Brendan Galloway. He's a likely candidate. He's been with the team since 2021. Just 5 caps, though, for the 29-year-old. He plays in England for Plymouth Argyle since 2021 and a few other English clubs, including Everton, who he was with from 2014 to 2019. Brendan Galloway was... well, we're not sure how much of a candidate he was for the 2021 African Cup because he had a knee injury which prevented him from playing. Over the recent period, he's only started 2 of their 18 games, subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 4. But we think he would have played more had he not been out with 2 separate injuries for 6 games. So just 4 games that he was not called up for. Brendan Galloway seems to have a recurrence of a leg injury that had him out from mid-January 2025 until the end of the season. He did return to play from August, but then had a brief recurrence in September, caused him to miss 2 games there, and now he seems to have the same injury. He's tagged with the same injury from November 11th onwards, so about a week ago, and it's an unknown return date for him. So we'll put him on the injury list at the end here, but we'll have to update in part 2 to see if this is going to keep him out of the cup. Let's look at our 2 possible candidates. Peter Maduha, been with Zimbabwe since 2017 with 15 caps and no goals. He's 32 years old, and he plays for the new club Scotland in Zimbabwe since 2025. He was with Highlanders in Zimbabwe before that. Not selected even for the preliminary squad for the 2019 African Cup, but in 2021 he was on the team, appeared only in game 3, a B team game there. We saw him replacing Hadebi. Over this period, he started just 1 of their 18 games, but he was on the bench for 5. Not selected for 12 matches, though, and that includes the last 4 matches. Again, the new manager may have a different view of things, so may either bring him back in or leave him off. The other possible candidate is Ishienesu Mauchi. Ishienesu Mauchi has been with Zimbabwe since 2024 with 3 caps for the national team. He's 23 years old, and he plays from Simbabora in Zimbabwe since 2023. A lot of the players who play for Scotland previously played for Simbabora. I think there's some friction between the 2 teams there in Zimbabwe. And Mauchi got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2025. He started 1 of their remaining 8 games and was on the bench for 3 and not selected for 4 others, including the last 2 matches. So I think he got a couple of caps in the kind of COSAFA Cup or one of those competitions. That's it for the central defenders, and let's move on to left backs and see what we have. We have a definite candidate in Jordan Zamora and a likely candidate in Divine Lunga. Actually, that's all we have over here. So let's look at the narrative of the position. It was a player called Onisimor Basera, starting the first 2 games of the 2021 African Cup. And he didn't play beyond that tournament. So another player kind of off the team after the tournament. When he was replaced in Game 3, it was by Jordan Zamora. And Zamora remains the main candidate over this period, starting 14 of their 18 games. However, I would say almost half of the games he started in other positions. So we're going to see him all over the field, really. When he's not playing as left back, Divine Lunga replaces him, and he started 7 of their 18 games. And the math doesn't add up there because, as we see, Zamora plays in other positions. And also, other players do come in and play left back. We have the central defender we met, Gerald Takwara, showing up there a couple of times. So it's not always Zamora or Lunga. Okay, let us introduce the candidates then. Jordan Zamora has been with Zimbabwe since 2020. And he's 22 years old. He's the one who plays for Udinese in Italy, so that's a good club affiliation. He was with Bournemouth in England before that. He was born in England. And he was part of the 2021 African Cup, as we saw, started Game 3 there. And well, we've talked about his recent participation, 14 games. 14 of their 18 games, 2 matches that he wasn't selected for. Divine Lunga is the likely candidate here. He's been with the team since 2015 with 31 caps. He's 30 years old. He plays for Mamelodi Sundowns in South Africa since 2021. And he was part of the 2019 African Cup, started and finished the first 2 games there, but was injured for the third. However, he was not selected for the 2021 African Cup, even for the preliminary squad. Over the recent period, we saw that Lunga started 7 of their 18 games. He was subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 1, and not selected for 6 matches, including the last match. There. So those 2 candidates are the only ones we have for left back, and let's move on to the right back position. Here also we have 2 candidates, and both of them are at the definite level. So we have God knows Muriwa, and Emmanuel Jallet. All right, let's look at the story of the position there. In the 2021 African Cup, it was a player named Takudzwa Chimwemwe starting the first 2 games, but like we've seen in other players, he was never called up to the Cup again, or never called up to the national team after the tournament. He too was replaced in Game 3. God knows Muriwa was the player who stepped in, and Muriwa was the main right back in the fall of 2024. He started 1 game in each of June of 2025. 1 game in June 2024 and 1 game in June 2025. But otherwise was on the bench apart from those periods. Emmanuel Jalai was on the bench for most of 2024, but he assumed the starting role of right back for all of 2025, except for the June games. So the only period unaccounted for in our narrative here is right at the beginning in March of 2024, March and June. We have 3 different players who were in the position over the first 3 games, and that includes left back Jordan Zamora. So after that, they kind of settled down to God knows Muriwa in 2024, roughly, and Emmanuel Jalai in 2025. And he does start in other positions. Actually, both of them do. I'll tell you about it here as we introduce them. God knows Muriwa has been with Zimbabwe since 2017. He has 19 caps and no goals, and he's 32 years old. He plays for Scotland and Zimbabwe, the new club there. He played for Cats United before that. He's pretty much played for all of the big clubs in Zimbabwe there. But his career has been just in Zimbabwe. He was called up for the 2021 African Cup and only appeared in Game 3, and that was in 2021. And over the recent period started 8 of their 18 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and being on the bench for 7. So in fact, it was just the first 2 matches that he was not called up for. And he does play as a central defender, especially when it's a 3-man defence there. Okay, that's God knows Murwira. And we have Emmanuel Jalai, also a definite candidate. He has been with Zimbabwe since 2025. He has 7 caps and no goals. Make that 8 caps. And he's 26 years old. He also plays in Zimbabwe for Dynamos, been with them since 2019. But he got his first appearance for the national team on the bench in March of 2024 and started 7 of the last 8 games there. Over the period, he had subbed in for 1 and been on the bench for 8 in 2024, but started 7 of the 8 games in 2025. So just 2 games that Emmanuel Jalai was not selected for, and I think I saw him as a right winger at least in 1 game, or maybe even a right attacking midfielder. So not just as a right back. Anyway, those are the 2 candidates we have for right backs, both at the definite level. We move on to the midfield and begin with defensive midfielders. So let's look at the candidates. Actually, for defensive midfielders, we have no one at the definite or likely level, just 2 at the possible level here, Prosper Padera and Jonah Fabish. And then we have 2 at the possible but unlikely level, Tivongi Rashesha and Mason Bouchard. So we'll take a quick look at them. After we've done some other business, because we're going to actually put the names of the central midfielders up as well before we look at the summary of the position. So for central midfielders at the definite level, we have Marshall Munetsi. He's captain of the team. And also definite, Marvelous Nakamba, but he has an injury concern, which we'll talk about. No candidates at the likely level, but we have 2 at the possible level. The first one is Andy Rinamhota, and the second one is Sean Fusier. Both of those English-born players. And at the possible but unlikely, we have Richard Hachiro. Okay, so we're going to combine defensive and central midfield. If you recall, sometimes they do separate the position, a 4-2-3-1 formation. So we have basically 2 defensive midfielders, although it'll be mostly central midfielders playing that role. Sometimes we have 3 defenders or 3 midfielders in a straight line, a 4-3-3 formation. So it's just kind of a clump of midfielders. We're going to see that the central midfielders play more here. So let's look at the position. Oh my goodness, where am I here? There we go. In the 2021 African Cup, we had a 3-man midfield. We won't go through the names though, because as in previous positions, it was a wholesale change that was made after the first 2 games and indeed after the Cup. In this case, only 1 of the 6 players survived beyond the Cup. Wow, that was Knowledge Musona, who actually we're going to deal with as an attacking midfielder in this media cast, although he was a central midfielder in that African Cup. So we take it up going into 2024 and find that the main man is now Marshall Munetsi. and he started 14 of their 18 games over the period. So he's a bit of a lock there. Marvelous Nakamba might have been equally present, but he struggled with injury. In fact, he's been struggling with injury since 2019, and in this period only ended up starting 5 of their 18 matches. Otherwise, either replace the replacement for Nakamba or the third midfielder. It's really been a bit of a hodgepodge of players. Manetzi is always there. Nakamba is sometimes there, and then sometimes about half the time it's a 3-man midfield. So we have one more player coming in. Andy Rinamhota was a constant presence in 2024. He started all 12 games up until March 2025, but then suddenly he was off the squad, not called up for the last 6 matches. All of the other names that we have on the list here all started once or twice. We also have a couple of out-of-position players starting from time to time, including left-back Jordan Zamira and Knowledge Musona and the other attacking midfielder Kama Biliat. All of those kind of pop up for a game or two, and no one has emerged as a consistent partner for Munetsi, who himself missed 3 of the 8 games in 2025. So a bit of a complex situation there. Actually, we're going to see that all of the positions from now on are fairly unsettled. But at least we have Marshall Munetsi here kind of anchoring the midfield. So let's take a look at him. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2018 and has 39 caps and 2 goals. He's 29 years old and plays for Wolves in England, Wolverhampton, since 2025. He was with Stade Reims in France for a long time before that, 6 years. After kind of moving from Africa. In the 2019 African Cup, he was a starter at least for 2 of the games there, but an injury prevented him from participating in the 2021 African Cup. He scored one of their 5 goals in qualifying for this cup there, and as we saw, started 14 of their 18 games, and then 4 games he was missing. Those 4 games towards the end, I might add. The other player at the definite level, Marvelous Nakamba. I mean, he will be a definite selection if he's available. We'll introduce him and talk about the injury here. Marvelous Nakamba has been with Zimbabwe for since 2015 with 34 caps and no goals, actually. He's 31 years old and plays for Luton in England since 2023. But he was with Aston Villa in England for 4 years, from 2019 to 2023. Actually, Luton loaned him back to Aston Villa again after that. Prior to that, he played for Club Brugge in Belgium and in Netherlands and France as well. And he was part of the 2017 African Cup. Didn't appear in game 1, but earned a starting position. And then in the 2019 African Cup, he started and finished game 1, but then was injured in training. And that's really when his injury trouble began. And he's had them ever since. In fact, for the 2021 African Cup, he couldn't participate because of injury. So he did start 5 of their 18 games over the period. He subbed in for 1, was on the bench for 1. But was out with 3 separate injuries for 9 matches and not selected for 2 others. So I'll tell you about his injury. It's a recurring calf injury, and he's been plagued with various injuries, as we've seen over the last two African Cups. Recently, this recurring calf injury had occurred three separate times. So in the first half of 2025, then he recovered and played a bit. Then it recurred in September of 2025, and now again in November. So he has played for club and country between those occurrences, but it's the same problem, a calf injury. So I do hope he recovers, but we'll have to wait for an update in part two. Let's look at some of the other candidates we've talked about. We'll go back actually to the defensive midfielders, but let's just finish the central midfielders. I mistakenly started with them, so I'll finish it off. Andy, the two possible candidates. First one is Andy Renamhota. He has been with Zimbabwe since 2023 with 13 caps and no goals. He's 26 years old. And he plays for Reading in England. He since 2025, and he also played for my beloved Cardiff in the English League for 3 years before that. So we really like him. Okay, so he was not part of the. He came on our radar, it looks like, in 2019, because I have a note for him to the 2019 African Cup. He was not selected for that cup, but he was an unused substitute in April of 2018. I guess that's how he came on the radar of Soccer Files. But basically, he's new as a starter. He started the first 12 of their 18 games over this period, and then, as we saw, not selected abruptly for the last 6 matches. So who knows what's going to happen under the new manager for Andy Renamhota. The other possible candidate is Sean Fusier. He's new to the team since 2025. He has 2 caps and is just 20 years old. He plays for Sheffield Wednesday in England, and like Renamhota, was born in England. Fusier got his first cap in June of this year, 2025, and started one of their remaining 6 games, subbing in for 1. But he wasn't selected for the last 4 matches, Fusier. So again, new manager that might not matter. Finally, we have for central midfielders, possible but unlikely, Richard Hachiro, and he was not selected for the last 6 matches. So we have him. I know that looks a little inconsistent, given that Renamhota was also not selected for the last 6 matches. But all in all, that's our thinking that Hachiro is less likely. Let's go back to the defensive midfielders, actually. We'll take a quick look at the 2 possible candidates. Prosper Pereira. He's new to the club since 2025, just a single cap. He's 19 years old. Interestingly, he plays for SJK in Finland since 2025 and first appeared on the bench in September of this year. He did start 1 game, was on the bench for 1, and then not selected for the October games. Jonah Fabish has been with the team longer. He is since 2021 he's been on the team, and he has 4 caps. He's 24 years old. He plays in Germany. He's the son of actually the manager Reinhard Fabish. Reinhard Fabish was the manager of Zimbabwe in the 1990s, and that's part of Fabish's connection to the national team. He actually was called up a few years ago, but returned after a 3.5-year absence in June of 2025. He started 2 of their remaining 5 games, subbed in for 1, and that's not selected for 2 others. So part of the kind of mishmash of players who got a start or 2 there. And the 2 possible but unlikely candidates, Tivongi Rushesha, also plays for Reading in England, actually. But he was not selected for 12 matches over the period. He was just on the bench for 6 matches and not selected for 12, including the last 2 matches. Maybe possible but unlikely is a bit harsh. He's actually played for the Wales international youth team, and he was born in England, Rochester, kind of like me. Okay, the second one is Mason Mouchour, also new to the team since 2025, but was not selected for the last 5 matches, although he did start 1 match. So we'll give more on those players, more information on those players in part 2 if they are called up to the national team. But for now, we're thinking that they're unlikely candidates. Okay, that is it for defensive and central midfielders. Let's move up to the attacking midfield section of the team. And I got to tell you that it's pretty kind of complicated up here. We're going to try to simplify it. So let's look at the position in terms of the formations they've used. So the 4-2-3-1, this left attacker position is going to be a left attacking midfield. In a 4-3-3, it is going to be a forward flanking the forward there. So we're putting all of these into one category, and let's take a look at who we have. We're moving some players around based on where they've played or where it fits the narrative. So we have as candidates here Walter Musona. He's coded as a forward, kind of plays all over the field there, but has primarily been here. He's a definite candidate, and so is Tawanda Maswanhise. Both of those definite candidates. And finally, we have one at the possible level, Daniel Msendami. Let's talk about the position then. In the 2021 African Cup, it was surprisingly left back Bruce Kangwa playing as a left attacking winger in a 4-5-1 formation, and he played for all 3 games there. However, he too did not survive the purge of players after the Cup. In the current period, it's been a variety of mostly out of position players in the role. So going into 2024, it was right attacking midfielder Msendami, who we've moved over to the left here. He played both of the March 2024 games. Then he did later move over to the right, so we're going to meet him there. So as far as the left attackers, he's out of this part of the story. We see left back Jordan Zamora popping up in June 2024, and basically he and forward Walter Musona shared the position for a year until March 2025. In June of 2025, Tawanda Maswanhise, who's actually the only one coded for this position. He had some starts on the right as well, but in June of 2025, he played the role for 2 games here. But in September, 2 different players were used. October saw attacking midfielder Tawanda Chirewa come in twice, but we're going to meet him. He played more as a forward. This is how messy it gets. Anyway, Chirewa was the last one to play in this position. He did so for the last 2 games. But clearly it's a position they haven't found a satisfactory candidate for. And it's been pretty much up to the new manager to try to nail down this spot. But let's look at the candidates we have for the time being. Walter Musona has been with Zimbabwe since 2014 with 22 caps and 4 goals. He's 30 years old. He plays for Scotland in Zimbabwe and kind of embodies the drama that's going on because he was taken from Simbabora in Zimbabwe. And that's kind of the pattern for a lot of the Scotland players there. Anyway, Walter Musona has played in Zimbabwe and in South Africa for most of his career. He did do a short stint in Slovakia with Seneca there. He was not selected for the 2017 or the 2019 African Cups, but and obviously not the 2021 edition either. I don't have any notes on him for that. He was actually off the team um, for almost 7 years, if you can believe that. Over the recent period, though, he started 9 of their 18 games and subbed in for 7. So just 2 matches he wasn't selected for. So pretty entrenched in the team at this point in his history. That is Walter Musona. We have the only candidate actually coded as a left winger or left attacker here, Tawanda Maswanhise, and he is a definite candidate too. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2024 with 14 caps and 1 goal, and he's 23 years old, and he plays in Scotland for Motherwell and was with Leicester in England prior to that. Actually spent 13 years with Leicester's youth club there. Maswanhise got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2024 and started 6 of their 18 games and subbed in for 8. He was on the bench for 3, so actually called up for all but 1 match there. He scored a goal in qualifying here, and actually Walter Musona scored 2 of their goals in qualifying. They only scored 6 goals in qualifying for this cup. The possible candidate is Daniel Msendami, and he's been with Zimbabwe since 2024 and has 9 caps. 9 caps and no goals. He's 25 years old, and he's the other player who plays for Marumo Gallants in South Africa. There, he also played in Botswana before that, and he got his first cap for the national team in March of 2024. So both he and Maswanhise coming in just at the beginning of this period. Msendami started 4 of their remaining 18 games and subbed in for 5, and he was on the bench for 4, but not selected for 5 others. I'm guessing some of those were toward the end because we did put him at the possible level here. Okay, that's the left attackers. Let's move over to the right side. And here too, we have some players we've moved. The first one is likely candidate Knowledge Musona, who's coded as an attacking midfielder. Actually a bit hard to pin down because he plays kind of all over the field there. He's at the likely level. We have also at the likely level Bill Antonio. Those are the only candidates we have here. So in terms of the position in the 2021 African Cup there, at the beginning of 2022, it was Ishmael Wadi who played the first 2 games, but like so many others, he was not called up to the team after that cup. In game 3, Knowledge Musona, who had been playing in central midfield for the first 2 games, moved over to play as the right attacking winger in the 4-5-1 formation that was used throughout that cup. Going into 2024, we have a player called Macaulay Bond, who started both of the March 2024 games. But the reason he's not on our list is because those games proved to be his last. Over the whole period, it seems that almost every attacking player we have here had a go at it. The player who appeared the most only had 4 starts there, and that was attacking midfielder Tawanda Maswanhise, who we saw starting the period on the left side and then moving over to the right. Knowledge Musona got half of his starts during the period here, so that's about 3 games, I think. And Bill Antonio got 2 of his 3 starts in this position. He was the, excuse me. Sorry about that. He was the only one to play twice in the position over the last 6 games. So that shows you kind of how chaotic it was. We had Bill Antonio twice and then 4 different players over the last 6 games. So very unsettled up at the front here. But let's look at these players in a bit more detail. Knowledge Musona has been with Zimbabwe since 2010. And has 57 caps and 26 goals. He's 35 years old. He has been captain of the team. I don't think he is now. Anyway, he plays for Scotland and Zimbabwe, so that team really growing since 2025. A couple of teams in Saudi Arabia before that, and otherwise kind of all over Europe, in Belgium and in Germany. Very experienced player. Knowledge Musona. He was part of all 3 of the cups that they've been involved in recently. Actually, not on the. Anyway, we'll just deal with that. He was a starter in the 2017 Cup, the captain of the team in 2029, and a starter, and same in 2021. There, so has a lot of tournament experience. He also scored one of their goals in each of the one was in World Cup qualifying for 2022 and one was in the World Cup qualifying for 2026. So has been scoring recently too. Had been off the team though. He actually returned into this period after a more than 3-year absence in March of 2025, and he started 5 of their remaining 8 games and was not selected for 3 others, including the last match. So Knowledge Musona not as firmly ensconced in the team in recent years as one might guess. The other likely candidate is Bill Antonio, and he's been with the team since 2021. And again, I think my information is not updated in terms of caps. But we'll forge on. He plays for KV Mechelen in Belgium since 2013, and moved from Zimbabwe there in 2022. He was part of the African Cup squad in 2021 there, but didn't see any action in the tournament. In fact, was not even on the bench for any of the 3 games, and didn't actually even travel to the tournament there. Bill Antonio in the recent period returned after a 3.5-year absence in June of 2025 and started 3 of their remaining 6 games and subbed in for 3 others. So that recent participation makes us think he's a likely candidate. But again, that's under the previous manager's thinking. So we'll have to see whether the new manager feels the same way. So those are the 2 candidates we have as right attackers, but really it could be anyone filling the position. Let's go to central attackers, and they actually do use this position in about 40% of their games in that 4-2-3-1 formation. But we have moved a couple of candidates. So Tawanda Chirewa, who we've mentioned, is coded as an attacking midfielder, but he actually played in central midfield a bit and more as a forward. So we've moved him to the forwards. We'll talk about him there. So he's not on the list here, but we have as a candidate Terence Juvkamanja. And although he's a definite candidate, he's not much of a starter. He's mostly a substitute. We also have at the likely level Kama Billiat, and we've moved Knowledge Musona over to the right, so he's not on the list here, but we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Mthkozisi Msebi. So we'll come back and look at those players. Let's talk about the position though. The 4-5-1 formation used in the 2021 African Cup would seem to have an attacking midfielder, but in fact it did not. That was a defensive formation and used central midfielders in the midfield there. But this central attacking midfielder position was used in exactly half of the 18 games, though players on the list here did pop up elsewhere too. It was used actually a lot in the fall 2024 African Cup qualifiers and in March 2025, where the position was played mostly by Kama Biliat. Sometimes he and central midfielder Marshall Munetsi basically switched positions. Otherwise, a few players appear in single appearances filling this position. Okay, let's look at the candidates we listed. Terence Zufkamanja has been with Zimbabwe since 2017 with 27 caps and 1 goal. He's 31 years old. That goal was in qualifying for this cup. He scored against Cameroon, and he returned after an 11-month absence in October of 2024 and started only 2 of their remaining 12 games. However, he was subbed in for 9 and on the bench for the others, so he's been consistently called up. And again, we'll see if the new manager continues to do that. The likely candidate is very experienced, Kama Biliat. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2011 with 63 caps and 18 goals. He's 35 years old now. And another player who's joined Scotland in Zimbabwe recently, he joined in 2025, and he played for clubs in Zimbabwe and South Africa, mostly in South Africa there, especially Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. Kama Biliat, and he's been part of the 2017 and 2019 African Cups. He was a starter in both of those, but not for the 2021 African Cup. In fact, the announcer during that tournament had said he was retired. We never really got the full story. There, he was the top scorer in qualifying, but then was not available or not selected, whatever it was, for the 2021 African Cup. But here he is, 4 years later, still playing with the team. He scored a goal in qualifying, one of their 6 goals, and over the period started 10 of their 18 games, Kama Biliat, and he subbed in for 2. And not selected for 6 matches. That includes the first 4 matches, so basically he's been selected pretty consistently, and he's a likely candidate here. The possible but unlikely candidate is Mthokozisi Msebi, and let me see, he was got his first cap in March of 2025. He started 1 game and was on the bench for 2, and then not selected for the next, not selected for 5 matches, including the last 2. So seems to be on the outskirts of the team, Msebi, and we'll give you maybe his career information if he is selected for the final squad. But we're going to move on here to forwards. No players coded as secondary strikers, although those attacking midfielders are kind of secondary strikers. But the forward position, as we said in section 1, 84% of the games it's a single forward, and 16% of the games it is 2 forwards. And then the 4-3-3 formation we view as a single forward with a left and right attacking midfielder. Let's look at the candidates we have here. So we moved Walter Misona. He's coded as a forward. And we also moved Tawanda Chirewa to this position. He's a definite candidate, coded as an attacking midfielder, but playing more as a forward. At the likely level, we have Prince Dube, and we have Tino Tenda Kadawir, sometimes called Tino Kadawir. He has an injury concern that we'll talk about. We have 2 players at the possible level. That is Timon Machope, and then Thandol Wenkosi Ungwenya at the possible level, and one possible but unlikely candidate, Douglas Mapfumo. Sorry, Douglas Mapfumo. He does come up in the narrative here. So let's take a look at the position of forward and how it's played out over the period we're talking about. In the Cup, the 2021 African Cup, three different players had the role over the three games. Two of them, though, Prince Dube and Tino Kadawir, are still active as we see. They're on our list. Kadawir had the position coming into 2024, but from September 24, he was out with two separate injuries. Various players, including out-of-position players, filled the position in single appearances in the role. We don't add them here because it just complicates things too much. So among the many players who are here, Douglas Mapfumo had the most with 4, but he was not called up to the squad in 2025. Attacking midfielder Tawanda Chirewa had 4 also, and Prince Dube had 3 starts spanning the period. Chirewa started both of the September 2025 games, and Prince Dube started the last game. So they seem the main candidates here. Again, though, that is under the old manager. Okay, let's look at the candidates, though. Tawanda Chirewa has been with Zimbabwe since 2024, so fairly new to the team. He scored, he has 10 caps and 2 goals and is 22 years old and scored 2 of their 5 goals in World Cup qualifying there. And he plays for Wolverhampton in England, just like Munetsi there, and has been loaned out to a couple of teams. He was with Ipswich in England from 2019 to 2023, and that was his youth club also. Chirewa started 7 of their 18 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 3. But he was injured for 4 games, and but just 2 matches he wasn't selected for. So he's a definite candidate. Tawanda Chirewa. That's a difficult name to say. Okay, next we have at the likely level Prince Dube, and he is been with the team since 2017 with 24 caps and 8 goals. And he plays for Young Africans in Tanzania. He played for Tanzania's other big team, Azam FC for 4 years before that, and otherwise played in Zimbabwe or South Africa. He was part of the squad for the 2021 African Cup. Started game 1, but was subbed out at halftime and lost his starting position. Just came into the game 3 as a substitute there. And he lined up as a forward there, of course. And he scored one of their goals in qualifying for this tournament, and started 4 of their 18 games over this period, as well as subbing in for 4, and was on the bench for 2 matches. But he was not selected for 8 of the matches, Prince Dube. So, but we still have him as a likely candidate. The other likely candidate is Tino Kadawir, and he's been with Zimbabwe since 2015 with 30 caps and 3 goals. He's 29 years old, and currently with Aris Thessalonica in Greece. That's a recent move since 2025. He's been with a couple of clubs in France. All of these, though, tend to be for a year or 2 before he moves on. So he also played in Sweden as well. But a lot of clubs in his resume. He was part of the squad for the last 3 African Cups that they were involved in. 2017, he was on the roster but saw no action. 2019, he appeared only in game 3, and 2021, also just one start there, but he subbed into the other two games. Kadewere started only 6 of their games over this period and was on the bench for 1. But he was out with 2 separate injuries for 6 games, but not selected for 5 matches, including the last 3. So actually, I probably should have him at the possible level. Anyway, let's talk about his injury. He's been out with a meniscus tear. A meniscus tear is a kind of a knee problem. He's been out since late October. It's an unknown return date, and I'm no medic, but to me, that sounds like a bit of a longer term problem. So we'll have to update it. I'm kind of looking, usually sometimes they give an estimate of when they'll come back. For the Zimbabwe players, I'm not getting that, so they're all kind of unknown. Anyway, we'll summarize that in part 3, and we'll move on here to the 2 possible candidates, Tymon Machope. So he's been with Zimbabwe since 2024 with 5 caps and no goals, and he's 32 years old. Another player who recently joined Scotland in Zimbabwe, having moved from Simbabora. That's a common pattern. He got his first cap, Tymon Machope, in June of 2024, and didn't start any games, but was subbed in for 5 games and on the bench for 3, but not selected for 8 matches, including the last 2. So a possible candidate there, but not really a starter, Tymon Machope. The last one at the possible level here is Thando Wenkosi Ngwenya. He's been with Zimbabwe since 2024 with 6 caps and 2 goals, and is 23 years old. He plays for Amazulu in South Africa, a recent move from FC Platinum, who he played with for 5 years. FC Platinum, one of the bigger clubs in Zimbabwe there. And Ngwenya got his first appearance on the bench just recently in September of 2025, and he started one of the remaining 4 games and was on the bench for 2, but not selected for the last match. So we have him at the possible level, but as we've been saying, all of these predictions are tenuous. Finally, we have Douglas Mapfumo. He is been with Zimbabwe since 2024 with 7 caps for the 25-year-old. In fact, those caps all came in a row in the early part of the period, and then he was not called up for the last 8 games. And part of the problem now is that he's been without a club since January 2025. So, that really damages a player's chances of being selected. Okay, that brings us to the end of section 2 of our look at the candidates, and we move to section 3. And we want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here, because we're releasing this as a short version on part 1 of Zimbabwe's players. So in the full version, we introduced the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad. We also gave some information on the team. So if you're looking for the reasons we're putting players at the level that we're putting them, or for career information on the players that we're about to present here, you can check the longer version of the mediacast here. Otherwise, it's really just a summary of what we're doing. But I'll say that we're not predicting starters at this point. This list is just predicting how likely players are to make the squad. So let's go with the manager first, Mario Marinica. And Zimbabwe goes through a lot of managers, so but he's really new to the squad since late October 2025, so probably won't change him before the tournament. So we'll call him a definite candidate. Goalkeepers, we have 2 definite candidates, Washington Arubi and Martin Mapisa. And then 1 likely candidate in Elvis Chipazesi, and 1 possible candidate in Marley Tavaziva. But I might as well say now that basically these predictions are based on what took place under the previous manager. So things might change under Marinica. But this is all we have to go on, is what's been happening until now. So at least we'll be presenting some of the candidates that Marinica has to choose from. So I might mention some of the less likely players. Seemingly off the squad is Donovan Bernard. Maybe I'll do that for Zimbabwe here, since there is a chance those players will come back in. Let's go to central defenders. We have three definite candidates: Gerald Takwara, Munashe Garananga, and Teenage Hadabi. A likely candidate in Brandon Galloway, and two possible candidates: Peter Muduwa and Ishianasu Mauchi. Those are central defence. Over at left back, we have a definite candidate in Jordan Zamora and a likely candidate in Divine Lunga. A right back position, also two candidates. They're both at the definite level. The first one is God Knows Muruira, and then Emmanuel Jalai. Moving on to the midfield, for defensive midfielders, we have no candidates at the definite or likely level, but at the possible level, Prosper Padera and Jonah Fabish, and then possible but unlikely, Tivonge Rushesha and Mason Mushore. Central midfielders, though, we do have definite candidates. Two of them, Marshall Munetsi and Marvelous Nakamba. None at the likely level, but at the possible level, Andy Rinom Hota and Sean Fusir, and a possible but unlikely candidate in Richard Hachiro. Up to the attacking end of the field, we've moved players around based on where they've played over the recent period. So we have, as definite candidates, the forward Walter Musona playing over here, and Tawanda Maswanhise, actually the only player they have coded as a left attacker. So no candidates at the likely level, but at the possible level, Daniel Msendami. On the right side, again, out of position players here. In Knowledge Musoma, he's coded as a right attack or as an attacking midfielder, but has been playing over here. The other one is a right attacker. It's Bill Antonio. Both of those at the likely level. For central attackers, we have Terence Zukamanja. Terence Zvukamanja is a definite candidate, but not really a starter, more of a substitute. At the likely level, Cam Abiliat, and then down at the possible but unlikely level, Umthakozisi Msebi. And then for forwards, we have a definite candidate in Tawanda Chirewa. He's actually coded as an attacking midfielder, but he's been playing as a forward mostly. We have two likely candidates, Prince Dube and Tino Tenda Kadawir, and then two possible candidates, Taimon Machope and Dando Wenkosi Ngwenya. And finally, a possible but unlikely candidate in Douglas Mapfumo. Whew, there we go. That is our review of the candidates. Let's take a look at big names off the squad. In fact, we don't really have any for Zimbabwe, and I'll tell you a little bit why when we get to the closing thoughts there. Let's review injuries. We have three players injured, and all of them will be at the unknown level here. We don't know what's going to happen really when they're expected to return. So we'll have to wait until part two and hope for more information. Anyway, the first one is central defender Brendan Galloway. We have him as a likely candidate, and he has a leg injury. We gave details on it in section 2, but won't be able to do that here. The other one is a definite candidate, central midfielder Marvelous Nakamba, a recurring calf injury has been troubling him. Otherwise, he's a definite candidate. And then the last one is Tino Kadawir, or Tino Tenda Kadawir. He's a forward, and we have him at the likely level, but he has a meniscus tear or a knee problem since late October that sounds like it might keep him out of the cup. Okay, closing thoughts on Zimbabwe. Well, we saw them kind of purge their players after the last cup in 2022, the 2021 African Cup. A lot of the starting players never appeared for the squad after, and the turnover for Zimbabwe is incredible. We saw that this manager they have hired just recently is the last of a string of 6 managers over the last 3 or 4 years. We also see players coming in and out of positions and coming in and out of the squad, and it's pretty chaotic. So change is is what you should think of when you think of Zimbabwe, but they do change things regularly over the time, and that's probably not for the better. Okay, let's preview part 2. That's going to come out in early to mid-December, and we will know what players were selected for the preliminary and final squads there. So we'll tell you. We'll highlight any notable non-selection, surprise inclusions, and new players. We'll give updates on injuries. Hopefully we'll have more information. And then my favorite part of part 2 is our prediction of the starters, which we will do. So that brings us to the end of part 1 here, and we hope you join us for part 2 as we get closer to the cup. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.